I don't like third wheeling your relationship to that microphone.
Sorry, okay? We're in love. We're in love.
It sucks.
When my brain goes blank, the podcast goes in, or the mic goes in. Ah.
Yeah. I mean, I think
bad.
it's kind of good that this isn't a video podcast, because that would take it up a couple age restrictions.
I think it's good that it is a video podcast because you're ugly.
Add another point to the Sam cancelable board.
Cold. Like this open.
Hello, and welcome to Podpodcastcast. It's a podcast where we review other podcasts. I'm Sam.
I'm Honor.
Hey, Honor, I hate you. I despise you. We had this whole setup about how you were going to do like a cute little anime voice.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, hi, I'm Honor.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
And you just can't bring any energy levels.
I'm here to ruin all happiness.
You really sound like if there was like an anti-coffee, that's where you're at right now.
Perfect.
And on this episode, we have good friend of the show, Jasper. Hi, Jasper.
Hello, it's me, Jasper.
I didn't like that.
Good
at all,
job.
Jasper. That was
that was good.
You like the anime voice?
I did like the anime voice. Jasper, we're glad to have you on.
I'm glad to be here.
We're good buds.
Yeah,
the three of us know that. The people don't know it yet.
No.
We're good buds. Such good buds, in fact, that Jasper, you're the one who made our theme music, the themethemsongsong.
The themethemsongsong,
as people are calling it these days.
And
have we ever mentioned that? I think we did. No, I think we did. I think on the first episode,
did we?
We mentioned Jasper made the music.
Maybe.
I don't think
we did. I think he's gone uncredited, and we stole his work up until this point.
I'm a big fan of that. Really, I'm pro plagiarism.
You didn't even credit that he came up with the name themethemsongsong. You gave that to the masses.
Yeah, no, I mean, truly.
I'm one of the people.
Jasper is one of the thronging masses.
Yeah.
You know, he's just happy to be involved. Okay, Honor? All right, he'll work for exposure.
We're paying him exposure? Yeah. I saw that coming.
I love exposure.
Well, we're here to expose the lies of big podcasts.
Whoa.
I know. This is becoming an investigative journalism podcast, and I'm very excited. No, it's not. It's becoming a goofy podcast where things are very silly, and I got to get it back on track. Mm-hmm. I think we've got some good podcasts to talk about. I know mine, and I don't know what either of you have brought this time, and I'm frankly quite
as always.
Because Jasper, I know you're a loose cannon. And Honor,
that's true.
You know, I know you live despite me. So there's, I feel like I'm fighting a double front war here.
And this is how you can tell we're such good buds.
We're such good friends. You can tell because we keep repeating it. You know what I mean?
Because we keep saying it and we keep talking about how much we hate each other.
Because we sound like I'm on trial right now, like I'm on the stand. Your Honor, he was my best friend.
We were buds.
You and he were buddies, weren't you? It's a deep cut reference, okay.
Let's get into podcasts, all right? This is enough faffing around. We got a podcast. Okay, so I have a podcast I want to talk about today. It's called Hildy the Barback in the Lake of Fire.
Intriguing.
Now, you can see already half the reason that I decided to listen to this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds at least moderately interesting. You know, I'm a bit of a fantasy boy. You know, I consume such things like The Wizard of Earthsea and no other fantasy medium. People keep trying to get me to watch Lord of the Rings, and I refuse.
I was about to say, you haven't seen any Lord of the Rings or read any of it. So
I hear it's bad. I hear it's not good. No, I it's true. I haven't listened to that much fantasy stuff, but I really do enjoy the genre. So I was like, okay, this seems like an audio drama that I could get into. And I've been looking for an audio drama. I've been in a bit of a dry spell with my podcast for a while. I listened to Joe Rogan for a long time, and we didn't particularly enjoy it. You know, I had a few good times in that whole podcast. I listened to many hours of it. I've been listening to the telepathy tapes. That's our next book club.
Mm-hmm.
Listener, if you want to
Sneak preview. Whoa.
I know, sneak preview. If you actually want to,
Crazy.
we're not very good at it being a book club. You
No.
know, it's really more of it is an ambush, you know,
Yeah.
Ant-Man bush as it were. And so I've been in a drought. I've been having podcasts that I'm listening to, but I'm not necessarily enjoying. I guess that's a bit of a spoiler. So I wanted to go back to an audio drama. You know, I think the last audio drama I listened to that I rather enjoyed was maybe Untrue Stories, or before that, Wolf 359. And so I was like, okay, this seems like it might just be a classic fantasy tale. I'm in. So that's half the reason. The other half the reason is that on the cover art, it's Melissa McCarthy in a suit of armor. Melissa McCarthy, famous comedian, movie star, and like, you know, typecast perpetually as this doofus.
Forever, yeah.
Well, except in that, what was that one movie that was like her Uncut Gems, where she like stole documents? No, she like plagiarized books and stuff.
Oh, I have no idea.
All right, we're not big Melissa McCarthy fans, but I was like, famous person, I'm in. And so I was really confused. I'm like, why is a famous person doing a fantasy podcast? So I got into it. Melissa McCarthy in this audio drama plays Hildy the Barback. Hildy the Barback works in a small village where she runs a bar with her brother. Then one day they're attacked by monster guys. I don't remember what they're called. Schmeglars or something like that. Hildy the Barback is the best. All the men run out into the Schmeglars and they all die. And so it's left to Hildy to defend the village, which she does because she's the best.
Naturally.
Then they go on this wild classic fantasy adventure. They have to acquire the 5 pieces of the Dread Aegis, which are like the most powerful suit of armor or whatever in the whole realm. So they have to go talk to the elves, and then they have to go talk to the centaurs, and then the giants, and yada yada. They go to all these places. Her and her merry band of half giants and wizards, and the girl, but I don't know what the girl does. I think the girl's fast. I think that's her thing. And so then they collect all these things, and in like the final episodes, there's the great battle between good and evil. Very classic fantasy, very Lord of the Rings. There's the great battle. Hildy goes behind the battle to fight the Dark Lord of Evil, Urgrál, the Horned One.
Okay.
Good name.
Good
One's
name.
got to say something about this
Yeah.
podcast. They are good at making fake fantasy names.
Yep.
I have to say I'm pro.
Opposed to real fantasy names?
Yeah, such as David Looselips and Johnny Featherwing.
Okay.
It's a real fantasy
That's
name.
pretty close to Captain Feathersword. That's one I know.
Who's Captain Feathersword?
From the Wiggles.
Oh, from the Wiggles.
One of the Wiggles is named Captain Feathersword.
No, he's an antagonist-ish.
Oh,
of
he's the pirate
he's on there.
who opposes the Wiggles in their journey to
Yeah.
Wiggle.
He has a sword that's made of feathers. It's a very descriptive name.
Now,
In that
now
sense, it's very
now you look
realistic.
like the idiot.
in
Because,
what,
people were named after their jobs, kind of. His
Yes.
job is Feathersword.
yeah, that's just historical. Quick question: how does a man with a feather made out of swords?
You want to try that again?
Not really. And how does that kind of person villainize anyone? You know,
Tickle.
Tickle.
tickle. But then you need some sort of goons to hold down your opponent while you tickle them.
Nah.
No one said he's effective.
Yeah.
Then
You did say antagonist-ish.
I very much derailed this.
No, that's all part of it.
This
Jasper,
is part
don't.
of it.
That's the best thing about podcasts is
Yes.
I can edit it out, and that's what I will do when you say something.
You thought I was going to say sorry. No, I'm proud.
Good. Good.
I derailed this, and it's my crowning achievement.
It was... Viewers, listeners, I want you to know that Sam rose from his chair in that moment.
They know because I shook the microphone so much.
The power of that statement. The puppet strings of the heavenly
Yeah.
authority with which he uttered that statement.
The pod lords raised me up so I could speak my holy message.
The Podlords.
Back to Hildy.
Hildy, in the climactic battle, defeats Urgrál, the Horned One, and stops the realm from being turned into a lake of fire, which is his ultimate goal. Which I gotta say, they don't mince words, you know? There's a lot of dark lords of evil out there whose goals are ambiguous or don't make a lot of sense. He's very clear that it just should all be Lake of Fire.
That's pretty good.
It's not very effective. It's not going to make a great empire, but that is his plan. Hildy defeats him in the battle, and the day is won. Story complete. Yay! So this podcast is, I think, 13 episodes long, somewhere around there. I don't really know because the title of their episodes are basically all along the lines of the beginning, the second part of the beginning, the end of the beginning of the middle of the middle.
That's really awesome.
Pretty good.
Prelude to the middle of the ending, completion of the middle of the ending, conclusion of the ending of the finale. It's not 13 episodes, it's 8 episodes. I found this out now. So you really have no idea. You just got to go. They're like, it doesn't matter. Oh, they almost treat it like the chapter names of a book.
Yeah.
In which they're all just numbered.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. You're just going through it. This podcast is interesting to me because, one, it is a celebrity podcast. A lot of the people who voice characters on here are B-list celebrities? C-list celebrities?
Famous-ish.
Famous-ish, like the other bartender from New Girl who isn't Nick, the main character. He's Ugral, I think. The principal from the show Community is Drith, Ugral's minion. By the way, unquestionably the best voice acting of this whole thing.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like, I'm Drith, and that's so much more energy than you could ask anyone else to put into. But just having
I won't put that much energy in.
You hurt me, Honor. Could I just get a really quick I'm Drith into the microphone?
I'm Drith. My voice doesn't go high very easily.
No, you know what it is? You didn't commit. I'm Drith. You got to commit to it. You got to rise up to the drithiness.
I did try. My voice struggles to go high.
You got to believe in yourself. That's what it's all about. And Drith does. So it's interesting in that way, right? Mm-hmm. In that it's another beachhead in the invasion of famous people into podcasts.
Yeah.
You might have seen these podcasts where it's like vague name of an audio drama plus face of famous person, but not like that famous of a person. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like they're not getting Tom Hanks. I couldn't think of a famous person. Mm-hmm. There might be a Tom Hanks audio drama.
I would listen.
Yeah, I don't think there is though. But
is that kind of what the Polar Express is? Tom Hanks voice acts so many characters in that movie.
That doesn't make it a podcast or an audio drama.
That's his role, is the audio.
Yeah, that just makes
for
it
him.
Okay, I guess you could literally take any film and close your eyes and then it becomes an audio drama. I just think you're not engaging with the medium correctly.
The thing I'm saying is that, did you know that movie was supposed to be voice acted by only Tom Hanks? Originally,
he was supposed to be the little boy.
Yeah, he was going to be everyone, and then they were like, "Okay, that's a lot of lines."
That's why, not that he couldn't be like the little black girl. That would have been fine.
The kids are voice acted by other people,
but
he's like all of the adults
in the movie.
Yeah,
I know. I've seen it.
So his role is audio, and it's a drama.
Honor, I know that you know what you're saying sucks,
yeah.
and I want you to stop it immediately.
I won't.
If you just read the transcript of a podcast, that doesn't make it a book.
It is pretty crazy to pivot immediately from hard stance, like mad at Sam for saying that plays and musicals are the same, to then take this stance. That is kind of crazy.
I know I'm wrong.
Okay.
He won't admit it.
Okay.
So I think it's interesting that it's part of this growing phenomenon of celebrities and podcasts, right? Like, we now live in the area where podcasts are treated seriously by the people who have been making entertainment, right?
Yeah.
It is not so much the old Wild West like it once was. It reminds me how there was a time in YouTube when people were getting really mad at what's it called? The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That guy. Slap guy. You know that guy?
Yes.
Yeah,
Will Smith. where Will Smith got a YouTube channel. They're really mad because he wasn't like an authentic YouTube creator. That's like part of it now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
That like famous people have YouTube channels and like that's another medium for them to make stuff. And I think that's part of podcasts now. So one, I think it's interesting from that perspective because all these actors are good and this is a well-produced podcast. It should be noted. The sound effects are pretty good. It's pretty immersive, I guess is the right word, but it's not. Clearly, there's a team behind this, and they've done a good job here. It's produced by Lemonada Media, and so it's very professional and well made in that respect. But it also is not a great podcast. So I said at the beginning, the start of the plot is that the monster men come attack. At the first part of this, that episode, it really feels like this podcast is going to be the classic fantasy story, but almost a satire of that, almost a parody where all the heroic men of the show are not present, right? And that kind of this almost kind of this feminist story of women can be the heroes as well, or you know, women don't have to be relegated to a prize or like the mystic witch of the woods. They can just be the characters, and most of the lead characters in the show are female. And so it starts off this way where it feels like it's going to be this parody, and it's making fun of like you know, men can't do anything right. There's a theme song where Melissa McCarthy says that the men folks say they'll protect me, but they would fuck up a cup of coffee.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and so you think it's going to be like that. But it almost immediately goes a different direction and just decides, no, this is like actually just going to be a normal fantasy story. We're not going to be very jokey and play with these themes very much in that way. This theme of like men are incompetent almost immediately fades away. Besides Hildy's brother is there and he is incompetent, but that's just his character trait.
Yeah.
Everyone else is fine.
Sure.
So I was kind of settling in for this like commentary on our classic stories, but that's not quite what we have here. And then I was like, okay, so maybe this is just a comedy podcast, right? We're going to tell a fantasy story, but it's a comedy, right? There's a lot of podcasts that like do that with Dungeons and Dragons, like Dum Dum and Dum Dums and Dragons, Dum Dums and Dungeons.
I don't know. I
think it's Dum Dums and Dragons. Podcasts like this that just do silly things in like kind of while telling a fantasy story. And that's what I was ready for, right? This is not a particularly funny show. Like, there's just long sections where everyone's kind of taking each other, like, fairly seriously, and it's more dramatic than silly. There's, like, some humor, but it's not... Like, this would not be, like, one of Melissa McCarthy's movies, you know?
Yeah.
Where you're like, it's a laugh a minute. You know, she's doofy all the time, and then you have, like, oh, man, there's some emotional... you know, pulling at the heartstrings moments. This is really just kind of like a traditional fantasy story most of the way through, with some funny moments. Like, they gain a new companion, and the king is like, take my large armored guard. And then the large armored guard is like, I'll tell you my name, dear friends. And then he dies in battle, and no one can remember his name.
Oh, no.
You know? And so, like, it's kind of funny. You know,
Sure.
They're like, large armored guard. But there's a lot of points where I don't know if things are supposed to be funny and they just aren't, or if they're just like, we don't feel the need to write that many jokes. We actually just want to write a normal fantasy story.
Yeah.
Come back around to my boy Drith, advisor to the evil man. He's the best again. He's the funniest. I mean, he sings. Okay. Every episode, by the way, has a song in it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think maybe the last
That's
one
points.
doesn't, because I don't remember it, but I think every other one has a song in it. I don't know who made the music for this, but they have a guy who sings a lot of these songs, and he sounds like off-brand Jack Black. Like, you know how they made Kung Fu Panda, and then they made the Kung Fu Panda show for Nickelodeon, the TV show, and they got a voice that sounded like Jack Black, but it wasn't Jack Black?
Uh-huh.
That's this guy. I don't know if it's the same guy, but that's what it
I
sounds
hope
like.
it is.
It's like, I feel like I'm listening to Jack Black's band.
Tenacious D.
Thank you. So there's songs in every one, which is like fine. They're fine songs. Anyway, but my boy Drith is always the funniest one, and he sings a song about blood feasts, and I it's really gory pretty fun.
That sounds pretty awesome.
So it's hit or mid on being a comedy. So I thought it was going to be this kind of satire. Then I thought it was just going to be a comedy. And then I was kind of left with a story that had its foot in a couple different doors. And I don't think actually made up its mind about what it wanted to do. I think the person who wrote it probably wanted to write a fantasy story. They take themselves fairly seriously. And there was some humor in there. But it's not going to rank as a classic of the genre.
Sure.
Of audio dramas nor of the fantasy genre. So it ended up just kind of being a middling pod. It was kind of interesting. I kind of liked the characters. I was kind of interested in the story. Kind of liked the music. It was all very... It wasn't a bad experience, but when I got to the end, I was like, I guess it happened.
Not a regret listening, but maybe not a recommend either.
I think that's a great summary. I think that's where I stand on it. I think this is 2.75 for me.
Okay.
That almost sounds really negative.
I mean, that's just above average.
Slightly above average. It might honestly be average, but yeah, I got more enjoyment out of it than I think Joe Rogan, which I gave it like a 2.5 or something like that. So, yeah, that's it. Hildy the Barback in the Lake of Fire. This is okay. Honor. Tell me you've been listening to something better than that.
I have. I've been listening to something that isn't crazy, but has been really enjoyable for me, and I think maybe just hits a couple niches of mine. This is a podcast called Jelle's MarbleCast. Jelle is spelled with a J. It's a guy from somewhere in Europe. I forget where. But
hey, all our European listeners.
Hi, guys.
I know you're out there. I see every listen you give. No one will care. It's going to be mostly the British that listen to us, so don't worry. Those are the only Europeans you can offend.
I wasn't worried.
Yeah, no.
You just said
I just wanted to acknowledge the Europeans, okay?
Hey, Europeans.
Estonia, I love you. Norway in the house. I think they listened to us one time.
That's awesome.
All right, Jelle.
But yeah, Jelle is a guy who there's a YouTube channel called Jelle's Marble Runs. Jelle makes, you might know of this.
I've heard of the Marble Run
yes.
I think I've heard
community
of this as well.
Yes. Okay, so Jelle's Marble Runs got really popular during the pandemic. It's these pretty elaborate like marble tracks that Jelle makes, and then eventually he started doing, they're no longer called the Marble Olympics because it got big enough that the Olympics were like, hey, you can't call it that.
Wait, he was the Marble Olympics guy?
He was the Marble Olympics guy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, also for people that like haven't seen this, you can look this up online. It's like
they were like sponsored by, gosh, which late talk show host was it?
One of the Jimmys.
It was either Stephen Colbert or like, I don't know.
Yeah, but he constructs these little like marble races with tubes.
He makes these marble races, and then the Marble Olympics I think started in 2016, and they got this huge sponsorship in 21 or 22 or something. I think it was 21. But yeah, so he'd been doing this, and it's slowly gotten bigger and bigger, and he makes all these different events for the Marble Olympics, and there's the medals, and then because there's each team, and then you see who wins at the end. It's like pretty elaborate.
And to be clear, when you say team, he's just got a group of marbles.
Well,
there's
it's
no
marbles.
people involved. He's just watching marbles.
It's marbles.
He's pouring tubs of marbles.
Well, okay, but it's
into
marbles.
these tracks.
There's 4 marbles on each team, sometimes 5 because they have a backup, and there's other events now that aren't just the Marble Olympics.
They have a backup in case of what? In case one of them gets sick?
No, this became a thing because one of the members of Team Momo, this is extensive. Team Momo has the racers Mo, Momo, Momomo, and Momo Momo. Momomo got injured during an event when a fidget spinners are dangerous obstacles. Momomo was hit by a fidget spinner so hard he cracked. And so they needed a replacement, and then Mimo, the backup runner, came onto the team.
And I just want to be so clear. You're saying, you're giving them their names, and you're saying Mimo or Momo, he got cracked. Momomo.
I believe if I got the member
Momomo
of
is
the
a
team
marble.
wrong,
Momomo
I'm sorry,
is a little
Team Momo.
glass sphere.
Yes. But he got cracked during the competition. He put himself on the line for his team.
Imagine if Momo, the face of the team,
Yeah.
the one that it was named after, imagine if that'd been him. That would have been crazy.
It would have been crazy.
And he gets replaced by Mimo?
He gets
Just
replaced by
become the
Mimo.
Mimos?
They also have a head coach for every team too. I don't remember the coach's name for Team Momo. Yes?
Are they also marbles?
Yes.
Are they
Duh.
big ones like the shooters?
No, but they normally look different. Most teams, the marbles look like, there's slight differences, but they have identical designs. So Team Momo is like this kind of like green base, and it's kind of like blue and yellow. It's hard to describe. They're cool looking marbles. But then the coach will look like slightly different. I don't remember what Team Momo's coach looks like. Or like the Crazy Cat's Eyes is another team. They're those marbles that you think of where it's like clear and then it's got like the little swirl through it, and it looks kind of like the slit of a cat's eye. And so there's red cat's eye, blue cat's eye, green cat's eye, yellow cat's eye.
Imagine you go over to this guy's house and you just know him from work. Maybe this is a first date.
I think he has like a whole warehouse where he does this stuff. Some of the events are outside too.
That's crazy. But I'm just saying, look, imagine you go over to this guy's house, you don't know anything about this, and he starts naming all the marbles to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure he does this full time now.
Yeah.
He's got to.
It's just
If I remember right, and this is the same people, I think his brothers got in on the production as well.
I think they might have. There's a lot of people on the production now. They have for a while had an announcer for all the events, which it's
hell yeah,
really well done.
Hell yeah.
And this is a fun thing. So I'm a fan of Formula One, and in listening to this announcer, because I've watched a fair bit of the
Marble races,
Marble League events,
which is awesome.
Mostly Marble Olympics, which is now called Marble League. But I want to watch. They do have Marbula One. Which I want to watch now that I know that they have it. I knew of Marble Olympics, but I want to watch Marbula One. But Greg Woods is the announcer, and he used to be a Formula One journalist, and you can tell.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty high quality production. Like I said, these are pretty elaborate, like marble runs. Different obstacles, different events they do. I like the ones where it's like collisions and the marbles have to fight. Those are some of my favorite races or events.
So sick.
It's so awesome.
How does this translate into a podcast?
That's what I was going to ask as well.
So, it is a sports talk show about the marble. All of the events, not just Marble League.
But it's about marbles.
But it's about the marbles.
It's a show about marbles.
Yes, it's so fascinating to me, which I just find it really enjoyable to listen to because I've grown up listening to sports talk radio my entire life.
Sure.
So much. It's on all the time. And so I really like listening to sports talk radio. I also think there's something really, I don't know, maybe relaxing, engaging, whatever the right word is, about people who know what they're talking about and are doing analysis and speaking in jargon, but it's also very conversational. It's that weird in between of a lot of hyper-specific knowledge, but also it's just like people talking.
Do you feel like you have enough knowledge to interface with this marble talk show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a point where I was listening, and there's two guys on the podcast. I don't remember their names, I'm sorry. But
there's two guys on the podcast, and you don't remember their name?
I don't remember their names.
Neither of them is Jelle?
No.
Jelle?
They interview Jelle at one point, but I didn't listen to that episode.
Wait, is this not an official?
Okay, so I'm not entirely sure. I know, like, Jelle isn't doing this. It was started by two fans, but I know they're in contact with Jelle. They talk with him. They had him on to interview. It seems like, which they don't explain specifically, but it seems like two fans wanted to start a podcast, approached Jelle, and he was like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, but it is not necessarily the official Marble League.
No, they're just
show.
Putting it on, and then Jelle is in conversation with
very
them.
Much like just the radio, like football talk show. Yes,
very
absolutely.
Much.
Okay, I see.
It is absolutely that vibe.
So Sam asked, you feel like you have enough background knowledge. How accessible do you feel like it is to someone who does not?
Such a good point.
Which is, to be clear, most of the world.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think it's that hard to get into because it is, again, it's marbles.
Sure.
It's not actual, which it is extremely interesting to me because when Greg Woods has been doing commentary the whole time he's doing it, he treats, like, the attitude about it is that the marbles are athletes. So we'll talk about, like, the runners. There's, like, medical staff marbles. There was ref marbles. Sometimes a ref gets hit in the midst of an event and they have to go check on him, but the refs are good sports.
It reminds me almost of, like,
referee teams.
Thomas the Tank Engine in a
something
weird
like
way.
that, yeah.
Like personifying.
It's very clearly little toys, but they've thought of it all. Like,
Sure,
they got all they need in their little world.
Yeah. So the marbles are treated as athletes, even though, like, you don't need a special skill set. You're a marble. So you know what the marbles are
They're
doing.
round, okay?
They're
That is a
round.
skill set. I can't do that. They've been training their whole life to be spherical.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was curious because I hadn't watched in, I don't know, like a year and a half. But I was like, I want to watch some more Marble League. Maybe this can catch me up on what I've missed. Especially because I'd only seen Marble League. I hadn't seen, like, Marble 1, or they just did, like, not just, it was a while ago, but early in the podcast, they were doing, like, an elimination event of a bunch of races. And I was like, I have no idea what all that's about. Will this catch me up on what that is? And I would say kinda. It was still, it was enough to follow where I felt like I was still having fun, but I wasn't like, okay, I know what happened and what these courses looked like and whatever.
Sure.
I was like, I'll still have to go watch that if I want to know. But it was still, like, fun and engaging and wasn't like, okay, I don't know what's happening at all.
Because ultimately, marble races are a visual medium.
Yeah.
The child in us all
For sure.
just likes watching the little guys
Yeah.
go, whoo,
Yeah.
whoo.
It's pretty awesome.
So it almost functions best as, like, a companion piece. Not really a stand.
Each for the hardcore enthusiast, like someone who's up to date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I still think it is fun as something. It was fun to be able to come in and be like, I wonder how my team, which I have several teams I cheer for, but my main team that I cheer for, that's really just been so mid forever. I wonder how they're doing. And it was great to hear that they're still doing not well. It was so awesome to be like, Oceanics remain mid.
They're just too full of friction, I guess. Like, the other thing is, how does it feel to know that that's never really going to change because they're marbles?
Yeah.
Like, there's no...
It's so fun. It's such...
They're not going to get better on the off season, you know what
But
I mean?
it's also, there are marble teams that have done really well historically. It's like, you know, that's a pattern that exists. It's just a really... to me, it's such an interesting showcase of how humans apply pattern recognition and make meaning out of everything.
Yeah.
Because they're not actual teams that are doing specific coaching regimens or whatever the thing is. But it'll be like, yeah, this team historically doesn't do well on outdoor courses. This team historically has a lot of speed but doesn't have a lot of stamina. And it's like, how do these, we're just finding patterns and applying them to these marbles.
I do like the idea of
and
marble
it's so fun.
stamina.
Yeah.
Marble
the
out of
races.
breath.
They
Marble side stitch.
The skill sets for regular speed races and for sand courses, very different.
Sand courses?
Yeah. There's a lot of sand courses.
I don't even know what that means.
Sometimes they go through water. It's pretty exciting. Yeah. Like I said, the outdoor courses are really fun. I like those.
What a fascinating case study in sports. And also in sports podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is interesting because then, especially because you're working with so little, like there's a huge amount of videos and stuff to watch, but you're not getting like actual press conferences or whatever. You're drawing conclusions based on patterns you have to find. And so it's kind of just improv, but in a like not comedy improv, but sports improv. But I really like that because I really like sports.
I want to know, like, what's the stats nerd of the Marble League world?
I want
to see the spreadsheets.
I think there's several, probably. People got really into it. There are still people really into it. I like Marble League. I'll get back into it. I plan on watching. I plan on continuing to listen to this podcast.
Every part of this is so funny because it's about marbles.
Because it's about marbles. It's awesome.
It's like, it is awesome. Like that people are,
like
getting into it. You know what I mean? Even if it's like a silly thing.
Yeah, it's really easy to smile about like a marble race. Like it's just fun.
There's nothing bad about a marble race.
No, there's no bad things.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Honor, what would you rate this podcast and your experience with it? Sounds like you like it. Is it a
I
good
like
pod?
it. I would say there's certain production elements. For the most part, I was honestly a little surprised with like the mics sound good. It's pretty streamlined. The episodes are 30 to 40 minutes. Some are even shorter than that. So it's not crazy long,
Seems
but it's
reasonable.
like, yeah, you sit there, you listen to a sports talk show for an hour, but they don't have any commercials, so 40 minutes. But there are some parts that aren't super polished. I don't necessarily put that against them because it's fans making a thing, but not the greatest podcast in the world. I would say probably a 3.5 marbles out of runs.
Whoa.
Because I also think if you're not a person who likes sports talk radio, there might not be a lot for you to be interested in.
And it also does require, like you said, Jasper, it also requires that barrier. You already got to be in the marble league.
Yeah.
You also already got to like... Yeah.
I don't think you need a ton of the background information because they give a fair bit because they're explaining things, but you should watch a couple events.
It's a fairly niche audience they're reaching out to.
Very niche.
But you enjoyed it as that
yeah,
niche.
it's fun to jump into that niche. And because it's just such a fun, silly thing. Like anyone is capable of having fun with a marble race.
You can put it on in the car and pretend it's a big thing. Like you're as if you're tuning
into
and
it
ESPN.
is.
Like, it's the world is all listening to this.
Yeah.
Imagine like dropping your kids off at school and you're like, I got to figure out how the Oceanics did last night, kids.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. That's awesome.
It's so awesome. Like there's so much to get into. There's a marble and a little booth that they made for Greg Woods. They have a marble representation.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's just all so silly and fun. It's awesome. So yeah, like I said, maybe not the most polished in the world, and you have to be interested in this kind of thing. So not crazy, but thoroughly enjoyable podcast.
Hell yeah, that's very awesome.
Yeah.
You know what else is very awesome? Whatever podcast that Jasper wants to talk about. Jasper, what podcast are you talking about?
It falls to me. Okay, so listener, I have something to admit. I feel I may have misled you. This is a bit of a betrayal.
He better honor. I swear to God, he better not say what I think he's going to say.
Oh, I think he's going to. I'm excited.
I'm going to be so mad.
Jasper, continue.
I don't really listen to podcasts.
Not again. How does this keep happening?
So many of our guests.
Yeah, I don't really listen to podcasts. It's true. Podpodcastcast actually kind of is the exception for me. I'm not reviewing Podpodcastcast today. I'll save that for another episode. Let someone else handle that. Maybe I'll handle it. Who knows? But
We're glad that you listen to us and appreciate us, Jasper, but it does hurt that you've joined the ranks of our guests who don't consume podcasts.
It's true. It's not for lack of trying. I want to make that clear. Podcasts are fascinating. That's part of why I like Podpodcastcast, because I can sort of live vicariously through you and feel like I enjoy podcasts without having to do the hard part, which is enjoying the podcast. Because my issue is I will turn it on. I'll be golden for like 5 minutes, and then the first time that my brain wanders off, I'm gone for a while. I come back and I've lost my place. I don't know where I am, and I'm like, I'm not about to rewind the last anywhere between 5 to 30 minutes that I spaced out for. When I'm reading a book, that's not an issue. I can space out. I come back. Oh, I'm on the same page. You know, there's no I don't have to pause because I just didn't turn the page.
Naturally.
If I'm watching a video or a movie, something will change on the screen. It'll catch my attention. And usually I don't space out for that long because I'll refocus.
Right.
With podcasts, I feel like I don't have that thing to look at to rehook my attention.
Nothing to ground you.
But I also would have to be, if I were conscious of the fact that I had stopped paying attention in order to pause it, then I would have just paid attention again.
Right.
So I really feel cheated in a way, because I would love to enjoy podcasts. There's a lot of really interesting sounding podcasts.
Okay.
So what I've done today is I've brought a list of 3 podcasts that I have not listened to very much at all.
All right.
But that I wish that I had.
And we can make this happen for you.
And are you going to review this?
I'm going to pitch you the premise.
Okay.
Why it's interesting to me.
Okay.
Some small information that I've gathered in my brief research.
Okay.
And that's about it. And then I can't tell you if it's good or not because I don't know.
And we can find that out because we're becoming an investigative journalism podcast.
We are an investigative. This episode on Podpodcastcast. It's a new podcast. No. Sorry.
Yeah. Is that how they intro investigative journalism
they've got
podcasts?
I'm gonna stab you. I think there was a stabbing.
Do they?
I don't. You know.
No.
I wouldn't know because I can't listen to podcasts.
Jasper, I'm excited for these first non-reviews. Could you give us the title and then maybe me and Honor can guess what they're about before you tell us?
Sure. Well, the other thing is these are podcasts that you've not reviewed.
Okay.
I made sure, but they're not the most obscure.
Oh,
Okay.
These are famed podcasts.
Yes.
Nice.
So like the very first one, I'm certain you've heard of.
What is it? What is the first one?
Welcome to Night Vale.
Yeah. We need to get on that.
I'm gonna guess that this is about a cute, cozy little town on the beach,
and that's true.
And that everyone goes around at night and they wear cloth on their head, over their face specifically.
Well, now you've made it horrifying again.
I don't think that was horrifying. It's a horror podcast.
Kind of. Horror.
It's an absurdist
weird,
podcast.
Paranormal, almost satire.
It is
kind of.
It is very famous. You're right.
Yeah. I think it's just the desert. I don't think it's the beach. If I remember right from the little blurb they listed.
Sure.
It's written. Hang on. First of all, I did varying amounts of research on these, so I will credit some people and I will not credit all of them.
Nice.
Okay, all right.
So it was written by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner. And the other big one is the narrator. I know this is kind of a reason that I've heard a lot of people like this show. And he was a good narrator from the bits that I remember that I did pay attention to.
Sure.
It's narrated by Cecil Baldwin, who plays a character named Cecil. I think the last name is different. Did not write it down. For in-universe, last name is different. And he is the radio host of Night Vale. So he's like kind of giving community updates, local news. So you kind of experience the weird, almost unexplainable but completely accepted happenings of this town. No one seems to really bat an eye, but these just completely bizarre things are going on.
Like there's paranormal, there's like aliens
there's
and
aliens.
stuff.
There's a giant like the glow cloud or something.
Everyone's left sock has gone missing.
Yeah, it's things like that, and it is very much like in that sort of cadence too. That he's like, and now the news about the glow cloud. Everyone, I would like you to know, that sort of thing.
Sure.
It's very, it's like that, and he treats everything with the same level of distant, mild interest. That it's like, and there's a lot of, from what I recall, there's a lot of contrasting, like extremely dull, uneventful things right alongside the crazy things.
Sure.
But I think there is also like some deep story and world building that occurs over time as well.
Yeah, I know that it's a huge podcast, something that we've discussed listening to before, but neither of us have.
Yeah. I've listened to one episode.
Yeah, I've never touched it, but I know it also has a huge community online. They do live shows and stuff. So
it's true.
Yeah,
live shows. They have multiple novels at this point.
Yeah, so there's this like lore that you talk about. There's this whole world extended universe kind of thing.
Yeah, they also do a segment that's kind of interesting to me where Cecil will cut to the weather, and then it will play a song by like some obscure independently published artist and feature them, which I thought was kind of a cool idea that they did.
Weird.
I feel like that's got to be hit or miss as far as like how good the music is.
For sure.
I remember at least one of the songs that from like my few attempts at listening.
Would
to
you
this
sing it
podcast.
to us now?
No, I would not. It was something like waiting for the bus in the rain. It also is like it's a lot of like percussion and rhythm and stuff, so it doesn't really work.
Awesome.
Waiting for the bus in the rain. It's not coming and it's really wet outside. I
More or
think
less.
that's how it
Yeah,
went.
that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But yes, you are correct. It is a huge podcast. It's been running since 2012, and there are 260 episodes.
Awesome.
And they seem to mostly be in the 25 to 30 minute range. Some go a little bit above, some a little bit below.
Quick listen.
You know, it's gone since 2012, so over a decade now, and I'm frankly surprised that there's not more episodes.
Well, I
They-
think it ended.
It's over?
I'm not sure.
Am I wrong?
I thought it was
I
ongoing.
think it
I-
is done.
I think I pulled it up and there was one from like December. So they might have ended it and then started it
I
back
think
up.
there
with
might
something.
be
makes sense.
like specials or something, but yeah, I'm pretty sure there was an end. I could be wrong.
Interesting. We'll have to listen to find out.
Yeah.
Jasper, what's podcast number 2?
What if you jump to number 3 and then we go back to 2?
What is your problem with order? Okay, sometimes things should just happen the way they're supposed to happen. Okay,
But what if they happen differently?
they don't. No,
Yeah,
it's not how it works.
it could be. Open your mind.
Hey, Jasper, pick a podcast and call it whatever number you want.
Okay, so podcast number 3.
Yes.
This one, the reason I put it at number 3 is because it's sort of the most tentative. It's
Okay.
brand new, and it has, I think, of the 3, the most potential to kind of be a flop. You know,
Okay.
it might not be good, but it's kind of interesting, and I also know the least about it.
What's it called?
It is called Couch Surfing with Koi.
Couch surfing with
Yes.
Koi.
Yes.
Hmm.
Koi is a YouTuber.
I think I was about to say, I think I know who Koi is.
I think this might just be a talk show. I think it might be like the Bill Burr podcast where it's just Bill Burr talking into a microphone. I want it to be literally surfing on a couch. Like an audio drama about surfing on a couch.
That makes me think of the double-decker couch from the Lego movie.
Which is
And
an
how it
awesome
floats.
movie. I love that so much.
Yeah.
What's it about, Jasper?
So it's this YouTuber. I want to preface this. Probably there will be a listener who is more familiar with this YouTuber than I am. He has made many, many videos. He is kind of popular, pretty popular as far as I know. I've not seen that many videos by him. The ones that I have seen, I did like.
Okay.
I've seen like 3 videos, and one of them was about how he's making this podcast.
Okay.
And that was enough to kind of get me interested, because so the premise is he's this young adult, kind of quit everything to do YouTube full time. Got this like crazy opportunity with Mr. Beast. He lived in the Mr. Beast village.
This is true?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
I do know this YouTuber.
Lived there for a while. Realized Mr. Beast not the greatest.
Okay.
No.
Moved away. Upended everything. Moved away. Kept doing videos, and that's sort of part of like his channel identity as well. Is just like kind of insights into his life and stuff that he's doing, as well as some other content.
Yeah.
Like he's just making videos.
Okay.
Mhm.
But so that's kind of the point. And now he's like feeling stuck again. So he's like, "What's a big change? I want to do something again." Cue this podcast, couch surfing. He's gonna go around. Travel around to places where he has friends that live all over the country. He's going to go around, spend a night with them, and then interview them. Do like a really in-depth interview with the people he's staying with.
Interesting.
So that's why I say it could be, it could be really, really good.
Sure.
If
If he's a good interviewer.
if he's a good interviewer and if the people he's interviewing are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be really terrible, or it could be mid,
Yeah.
or it could be on an episode by episode basis, and that's
Sure.
kind of where I would guess that it lies.
Yeah.
Is like some episodes really, really good and insightful. Some of them, okay, I don't know about this. I know he's a funny personality.
Mhm.
Okay.
Pretty good at playing off of others. I've only seen one video where he was really interacting with other people that much, though. So I don't have a lot to go off. The video where he talks about making this podcast the majority of the plot line is around taking the cover photo for the podcast. And that was kind of what hooked me, was this video, because in this video, they get a couch, and he has this vision. He's going to put the couch like halfway in water and then sit on it and take the cover photo on there. Couch surfing. Like
I see.
Yeah. So they find a lake. They find a park. It's so far from the parking lot, and this couch is heavy. But their hero comes in clutch, motorcycle guy.
He's
leaving, and they're like, how are we going to do this? And so against like the social anxiety, they go up and ask him for help. He's like, I got to get to work, but I'm going to help you guys.
Awesome.
And so they're like, we'll pay you. We'll give you like $20, whatever we got. And so the guy, he's like, let's go. He's like full of energy, and they like run with the couch.
Oh
and
my
then he
gosh.
runs all the way back to his motorcycle, drives off without taking the money.
Wow.
Legendary.
Yeah, what a legend.
If we can get that guy on the podcast, it'll be a great podcast. He sounds awesome.
I hope he reaches out, and he is on the podcast.
Interesting.
Anyway, it might be good, it might not. I think there's one episode out now, maybe like 2, I don't know.
I just
It's very
checked. It looks
recent
like
that
there's
starts.
5.
5? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 1, he's not interviewing anyone. It's just him.
Mm-hmm.
It's about his story. I think it's even called like I Escaped Mr. Beast.
My Escape from Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
It's
But then
pretty good.
the other ones he's interviewing people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of that one. It's kind of intriguing.
Not one that I
Could
think
be
we
good.
would have heard about on her.
Could be bad.
I think I could have potentially, like I said, this is a YouTuber that I know about.
Oh, yeah.
I'd seen one of his videos, and I'd seen other videos he was in, because he's in the same realm of other people that I watch. He's actually kind of in the Chuckle Sandwich sphere.
Interesting.
So I kind of have faith in this podcast. He's a pretty entertaining guy.
Yeah.
The video I watched was him like accidentally becoming an investigative journalist, where he stopped a underground gambling cover.
Yes.
Like the cops show, like
That
he
I think
took
that's
them
the one
down.
Where it's like
He was
reviewing places.
he was reviewing
no
places that
reviews.
had 0 reviews, and he found a restaurant, quote unquote. It was just a bunch of like what he thought was illegal slot machines and stuff, and he was right.
What is an illegal slot machine?
Like there was no license
slot
or
machine that
anything.
Following the
dispenses
regulations.
drugs.
There were no regulations. There were just
Taxes.
kids playing slot machines.
Oh no, that's actually really bad.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very illegal.
It was
Weird.
kind of an awesome video though.
Yeah, he took him down, dude.
This might be
And then
an
he also
interesting guy.
did just review the other spots
He did just,
too. He was
yeah,
like,
it was
"This food
awesome.
is kind of mid.
There were some places that were good. Yeah,
He went to a park. That one was fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's pretty.
That was one of the like
Entertaining.
3 videos I've seen of his.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I've seen his dedication to, in that video, like deep dive into a thing, which makes me think he could probably be a pretty good interview podcast host.
Might be worth to give it a listen.
Yeah.
And
I think,
it's pretty short for right now because it just started.
yeah, it looked like the longest episode was also an hour. They're all about an hour.
Okay, Jasper. What is your third podcast, which is your podcast number 2?
Podcast number 2, perhaps the one that I personally am most intrigued by.
Okay.
That I am most regretful, but also perhaps if I tried hard enough, maybe could do. This podcast is called MarbleCast. Have either of you heard of it?
Maybe.
Drabblecast. Drabblecast, I think, is a podcast where it's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast that's primarily about basketball. And dragons are playing basketball, dragons are dribbling, Drabble.
Dungeons and Drabble.
That's incredibly wrong, but I
Dang
also
it.
really like it.
Okay.
I think that should be...
Let's make
okay,
that.
because...
We're on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
because what it actually is it is a collection of short fiction. So they're
That's what I
they're
figured.
reading out loud short stories, drabbles, which
Mhm.
are short stories that are exactly 100 words.
Yep.
And
Whoa.
twabbles, TWABBLES, which is exactly 100 characters long. And I believe
What?
that Drabblecast may have actually invented this phrase because I Googled it and the majority of the results were Drabblecast's own webpage. No
Yeah.
one else seems to be using this word.
Yeah, my assumption.
Unlike Drabble. Drabble actually is kind of an established thing.
Drabble, not a real word. Drabble.
No, Drabble's
Everyone
used
knows
a
about
lot.
that.
I figured Twabble was 200 because people will talk about double Drabbles, triple Drabbles,
Yeah, this is
etc.
like even short, like
Yeah,
the ultimate bite size.
Yeah.
Like
that's crazy.
So do they read out one story per episode? Like, is there are they like 1 minute long?
they're reading out several. It's usually there'll be like one big short story. That's kind of but yeah, they'll have one main focus and they'll read like some of the shorter drabbles or twabbles and stuff that they'll feature as well. And originally it was just written by the creators, but now and actually pretty quickly it seems they pivoted to crowdsourcing all their submissions. And they actually pay for the stories, at least the longer ones. So it's open submission, and then if they actually choose yours and feature it, they like pay you on like a word count basis, which is an interesting.
That's I guess they're not paying that much.
I think they both limit at like $300, but
sure. Wow, but that's still
like
This must be a very successful podcast if they can.
Yeah,
and I think that's mostly funded on donations.
Interesting.
You can donate, and pretty much all the donation budget goes back into paying the authors that they're featuring.
That's awesome.
And I think like a handful of famous authors have then like reached out and gotten their stories featured.
Really?
As well. Yeah, I don't remember because I didn't recognize any of the names, but they claimed that they were famous and they had like actual published books. I checked on their websites and stuff. So.
That is
into
intriguing.
this one.
It is very, very interesting. And this is one where I have successfully listened to an entire episode. And the reason is because I listened to this in a class during a summer camp where I was taking some sort of literature class.
Yeah.
And the teacher had us listen to it, but had printed out the story as well that they were featuring.
Sure.
And so I was able to read along, and that was enough for me. Like the combination of hearing it and reading it along and like being in that class environment, I think is like that was the perfect storm that let me like, okay, I'm dialed in.
You can do podcast.
Yeah, and it was a good story too. I don't remember what story it was, but
nice.
It was good.
I think, Honor, we should get into more of these short story podcasts because that's what Dust, when it's not Chrysalis.
Yeah.
That's what that podcast did. And then also LeVar Burton, who did The Reading Rainbow and was Geordie LaForge on Star Trek, has a short story reading podcast, which is great. So I feel like we got to get into this, Honor.
Yeah.
Drabblecast sounds awesome.
It does. And I just like short
sound
stories,
good.
so that's why it's most intriguing to me. You get a ton of variety, and they really try to curate, like, on their website, they make it very clear they want really weird stuff.
Awesome.
So they go from like super like actually genuinely jarring horror, like existential horror, to like just absurdist stuff and everywhere in between. They want like a super weird collection, and it ends up making this still like semi-consistent identity from what I can see from like what I've perused of the blurbs. But it's still distinct because you get a lot of variety. If you don't like an episode, the next episode will be very different.
Sure.
Like it's not like if you don't like the plot of a longer audio drama, you're probably just not going to like any of it. But this is like they can have a few stinkers that don't like land with you necessarily.
Yeah.
But you can go back, you can just skip ahead, and you definitely can skip ahead because the other thing about this podcast, to date, they have 499 episodes.
Okay.
Infinite content glitch.
And then at least recently, that's been in the 20 to 30 minute range per episode. And then they also have a lot of other stuff. They have something called the B-Sides, which I was kind of running out of time to research this.
Sure.
It seems like it originated as like a Patreon reward extra content kind of thing.
I see.
But I think now it's just public because they just have a link and you can just like look at them all.
Or maybe like Patreon gets early.
Yeah, it might be. It might be
something.
like on a longer delay or something. Yeah. But yeah,
interesting.
so there's tons of content there.
Jasper, I gotta be honest. I'm kind of interested in all these podcasts.
Same.
Probably Drabblecast is my most interesting because I've just not heard that much.
Yeah.
Of other things like that. And it's kind of solidified in my brain the short story podcast. Now, how would you rate the experience of perusing podcasts and not listening to them?
I gotta say, that's gotta be like 1.5 pods out of cast because
it's not very podcast.
Yeah, it's not very podcast. I guess you're right.
No.
All of that comes from like, wow, this is a cool idea, and then, but what it's missing is the fact I don't hear that. So like, I don't actually know what the podcast is, and I'm like, I know I want so badly to listen to this, but I know that I won't. I know that I can't. Yeah. So if you review these, I would be overjoyed because then I can like know if I was right. If I was like, yeah, that was a good podcast, even though I wouldn't know. Now I know.
Now you know. And that's what we're here for.
Drabblecast is one, though. If there were any of the three, that's the one that I would try again. I can get into the short story, especially if I can find them printed somewhere and follow along. I think that's going to be my best bet.
I was going to say,
success.
I wonder if they have the transcripts somewhere, because it'd be easy
Night
to
Vale,
have.
I think, sells the transcripts, episode transcripts bundled together in books.
And I also think
it's pretty awesome.
Spotify is trying to like push podcasts to have transcripts.
Yeah.
And I guess you're the reason why.
Yeah.
You're the audience.
It is definitely a more like dedicated active listening. So that also kind of bars me from like a super long audio drama where it's like I'd be willing to passively put it on in the background if I could pay attention and like actually remember it as well. But I won't. And so sitting down and actively doing it, like sitting down and taking 20 hours upwards of that to like just listen to a podcast and follow along and spend the energy to focus on that, that's a little much for me right now.
Yeah.
Well, nonetheless, Jasper, that is excellent.
Thank you.
And what is likewise excellent is the inbox at podpodcastcast@gmail.com.
So true.
Let's head on down. All right, guys. You know, it's been busy down at the podpodcastcastpod@gmail.com inbox.
Mm-hmm.
First email. Subject line reads, Protest and Rebellion.
Solid start.
All right.
Honor and Sam, parentheses, whose dearness is at this point well established within the Podpodcastcast canon, parentheses, the can on, if you will, parentheses.
Of course.
We apologize for our temporary leave of absence from your inbox. There are many things on the vegan agenda, and to be blunt, you are middling to low on our list of priorities.
Okay. Thank
you all vegans. However, we've carved out a modest portion of our valuable schedule for the purpose of crafting and delivering the following message, : enter. Ain't no way you so forcefully eschew the moniker of, quote, peepee heads, only to immediately follow it up with a 54-minute episode in which you say the word potty at least every other minute and include a full 10 seconds of just a toilet flushing. You're stuck with it now, bozos. Peepee heads, rise up. Sincerely, all vegans. Thank you.
Here's the thing. That's fully your fault. You proposed 100% of those things.
What are you talking? Also, it's not 10 seconds. There's no way that the toilet flushed out in 10 seconds. It's also the second piece of feedback I've heard that it was too long.
I would like to see someone go back and count.
Please count.
It was too long.
It was, but also like, okay, people, you have to think, I was trying my best. I wanted a shorter one too. It was just the best sounding one that wasn't actually filmed on someone's phone in a public toilet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Everyone go back and re-listen to that episode so you can count how long the toilet flush is, and that'll get our engagement up.
Should we clip that?
Well, thank you, all vegans. We appreciate you. We love to see you back in the inbox, and we're deeply saddened.
Do we?
I do. I missed them a little bit. But I am very sad to see that they're on the wrong side of history on the peepee heads debate, which is not what you are called, listeners.
Nope.
Never forget that.
Yeah, that's
which
just what
I
I'm
think
hearing.
brings us to our next email.
Our next email reads, subject line, Podheads is not better. However, listeners is good for everyday casual use. I love podding or I love podlings or podcasters. That one's not bad. Exclamation point. If I got called podling, I might think I was a dolphin. However, I love dolphins, therefore podlings would be acceptable. Sincerely, Sherlock B. Holmes. Well, thank you, Sherlock Holmes. We appreciate you
Sherlock
taking the
Holmes.
time to email in. I know you're solving crimes in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So this was a big feat for you, so we appreciate you big time. Well, thank you, everybody that emailed into the podpodcastcastpod@gmail.com inbox. You, listener, can send an email, and we'll read it out on the show if you want. You can also email in and say, don't read this out on the show. Sam, Honor, you owe us money. We won't respond to those.
No.
But we'll read them. We won't read them on the show, and that's okay. Do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If Spotify, you can't write anything, so just, at that point, send an email or just write some manic scrawls on a piece of paper and
Upload your own podcast. Reviewing Podpodcast.
I'm into it.
Podpodcast.
The Podpodcastcast fan podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Let people know what you think about us.
I'll write you a theme song too if you hit me up, if you make that one.
I would. Could we just work on that one together? It's just the theme song, but
I just double every bar.
Yeah. I would like that. Leave us reviews. Follow us wherever you're getting this podcast. It is great. You'll be updated the next time that we release an episode, which will be soon. We're back on our normal schedule. We got new pods coming out. Telepathy tapes next episode.
Telepathy tapes.
Honor hasn't started listening to it,
but I'm excited.
I'm all the way through it, and I got thoughts, and I need to talk about them quickly.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Honor, for joining me on this episode of Podcast.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Jasper.
Thank you, Jasper,
for coming on.
Thank you for a wonderful theme song. Thank you for
of course.
your thoughts on podcasts you haven't listened to.
Yeah.
One day,
always a pleasure.
We're gonna
always being this time, because that's the only time that I've ever been on this podcast. But every time I've been on this podcast, it's been a good time.
Awesome.
That's great. We should send that out to prospective guests.
Yeah.
Come on, Barack Obama.
Come on.
Billy
Michelle
Crystal.
Obama.
All right. Thank you, everybody. What a wonderful episode of Podpodcastcast. Stay tuned for more podcasts. Until then, Honor, what do you always say?
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. I do need a catchphrase. Oh shit! You know what I could have said?